Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, my Loverlies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I am so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got your back, at least when makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is True Love Tuesday, and we are talking about quite an enigma, a very mysterious man on the Hollywood scene. We're talking about Mr. Joaquin Phoenix. Before we get started, a very special, very warm welcome to any of those that are new to my channel. I am so incredibly happy that you are here. If you enjoy the content, I do so hope that you will mash that thumbs up button. I hope that you will subscribe if you have not already. And I hope that you will ring my bell, turn on your notifications, so that way, next time I upload a video, you can come right back here and we can hang out together again. Also, my eye makeup is already done. What do we think? I am very much in love with it. I, of course, did film a TikTok on today's eye look, just in case you're interested. I will make sure to have the tags for that, as well as all of my other socials, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff, listed in the description box below. Guys, if you are not following me on all my other socials, you definitely should go do that. I post fun content every single day, and if you're following me everywhere, you don't have to worry about missing a single moment of it. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's dive into the love story. I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole concerning Mr. Joaquin Phoenix. Y'all, I realized that he is an incredibly interesting person with a backstory that I knew absolutely nothing about. He's a little bit of an enigma. He's mysterious, but mostly because he just doesn't talk about himself. He keeps to himself. He really doesn't speak about his personal life, like, at all. Pretty much the only time he does an interview is when he's talking about one of his projects. But other than that, he stays out of the spotlight. Not only that, but he also has a very distinct distaste for all things Hollywood and overprivileged, which I think is a little bit odd considering who he married, but we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. When I found out that he had married Rooney Mara, I was kind of flabbergasted. To me, it just seems like a really odd pairing, but then once I started kind of digging into it and realizing who they both were as people and what they're like, the pairing doesn't seem quite so odd anymore. They actually are very, very similar once you get down to brass tacks. They've been together for going on 8 years. They met 12 years ago, but they've been a couple for about 8 years now. They are going on 2 children. They had one a little while ago. They just recently announced that they're expecting their second one. For the most part, it seems like their relationship has been almost effortless. It's kind of like they fell together. Once they got over that initial speed bump, they kind of fell together, and it's been married bliss ever since. But such an interesting story. Today's video is going to be mostly focused on Mr. Joaquin. I feel like his backstory and everything about him is just so interesting, on top of the fact that many people just don't talk about him. He's just not like at the forefront of people's brains when they think about celebrities. So I thought today would be a bit of an unexpected and fun little video. I hope that you are just as interested and curious about this man as I was, and I hope that you have just a little while to sit back, relax, hang out with me for a little while. We're going to be here for just a minute, so go get you a big old glass of something to drink, sit back, relax, get comfy, get cozy, and let's get into it. As always, I'm going to dive into a little bit of backstory on each of them individually, and then we'll get into their love story together. We're going to start off with Mr. Joaquin. Y'all, again, his backstory is just insane. The more I learned, the more I wanted to know. It's just, I knew absolutely nothing about this man. So he was born Joaquin Rafael Phoenix on October 28th, 1974. He is 49 years old, and he was born in the Rio Piedras district of San Juan, Puerto Rico. His father, John Lee Bottom, was the founder of a landscaping and gardening company, while his mother, Arlen Hart Bottom was an executive secretary at NBC Studios. Through her work, she made a connection with a very well-respected child talent agent who then supplied her children with acting work. So Joaquin has 4 siblings. He is the middle child. He has an older brother, River, who was born in 1970, an older sister named RAINE, who was born in 72. Then we have Joaquin. Then he has a younger sister named Liberty, who was born in 76. And then last but not least, we have a younger sister named Summer, who was born in 78. Now, all 5 children have been involved in the acting profession in some shape or form, though some have been more successful than others. The 2 most successful of the siblings were River and Joaquin. Y'all, like I said, his childhood was anything but boring. So his parents met while his mother was hitchhiking through California. His father came across her, offered her a ride, pretty much love at first sight. Things moved really, really quickly, and before they knew it, they were getting married. They fell in love fast, and before they knew it, they were married, and after that, very quickly popped out 2 children. Now, after the first 2 children were born, but before Joaquin came into the world, they decided that it would be a fantastic idea to join a cult. Now, they didn't join just any old cult. They decided to join the Children of God, and they joined and became incredibly active members. Not only that, but they became missionaries. And through their missionary work, they began to travel. They took their children with them, and they traveled extensively throughout South America and Puerto Rico in the Caribbean as missionaries, spreading the word of God and recruiting people to said cult. It was during this time that Joaquin and his sister Liberty were born. Now, John and Arlen joined the Children of God in 1972, and by 1977, about 5 years after joining, they began to really dislike the direction that this church was headed. Both John and Arlen began to disagree with how the cult leaders began to distort the rules. They also began the practice of flirty fishing. And if you don't know what this is, this was some big to-do when it comes to this cult in particular. Now, flirty fishing is where the female members of the cult will go out and recruit other members, specifically male members, by offering favors and, you know what I mean. Flirty fishing, right? It's kind of self-explanatory. But John and Arlen really disagreed with this, right? They might be a little bit hippy-dippy, but they are very, very good people. They do not agree with any of that nonsense that the church was very clearly headed in the direction of, so they were out. They checked out, they said, no, thank you, we're done, and they packed up their kids, and they moved from wherever they were in the Caribbean down to Florida. Now, not so fun fact about that whole flirty fishing kind of escapade or kerfuffle. Now, over 200,000 men were lured into this cult in particular as a direct result of the practice, and over 10,000 babies were born to cult women between 1971 and 2001. I think that's freaking insane. After leaving the church, the Bottoms settled down in Florida, and at this point, this is when they added the 5th and final addition to their family, a beautiful baby girl named Summer. Now, along with leaving the cult and moving to a new place, they were basically starting a new life, and they decided that they needed a new last name to go with it. They thought long and hard about what they wanted their new last name to be, and they ended up deciding on Phoenix. Now, they named themselves after the mythical bird that is literally reborn from its own ashes. They thought it would signify a rebirth and a restart to their family of 7. Now, the entire family absolutely adored nature. They enjoyed being out in the woods, hiking, doing outdoor activities, and along with this love of nature came an absolute adoration of all of God's creatures, both big and small. When Joaquin was around 3 years old, his older siblings came upon a fishing crew and discovered how fish are kind of processed, how they're like taken out of the water, and how they're kind of euthanized, things like that. And it disgusted them so much that they went home and they told their parents about it, and that very day the entire family went vegan. As Joaquin got older, he began to really dislike that all of his siblings had names that, came from nature, while he was kind of stuck with Joaquin that had nothing to do with nature at all. And it was at this point that he began referring to himself as Leaf. Now, he chose this name because he really loved it when the leaves fell off the trees in the fall. He just thought that the leaves were so beautiful, the way they moved in the wind and the noises they made. He just thought it was absolutely perfect. And from that point on, he was strictly referred to as Leaf. And he continued to refer to himself as Leaf until he was around 15 years old. Now, at some point, John had to stop working. Of course, John is the father, and up to this point, he is the breadwinner for their family. Now, he had to stop working due to an old spinal injury, and now it was Mom's turn to kind of step up and be the one to go out and start working, right? Well, she couldn't find work in Florida, not enough work to really support their family of 7, so they ended up packing their bags one more time, and they moved out to Los Angeles, California, basically across the country. After the move, Arlen was able to find a really high-paying job as a secretary at the NBC studios, and it was at this point that she made the acquaintance of a very well-respected, kind of renowned child talent agent by the name of Iris Burton. Now, Iris was an incredibly well-respected agent. She had been responsible for discovering and representing many a child star throughout her career, and the very minute she met Arlen's children, she was instantly enchanted and saw immediate potential in all of them, but specifically in River and Joaquin. And of course, eventually she would be proven very, very correct. So pretty quickly, she found them spots in commercials and bit parts in TV shows. Joaquin has said that his first acting experience brought him instantaneous joy. He says, "I was 8 years old and I remember the first scene on the TV set so vividly, and I knew that I loved it. The physical sensation and how powerful it was, that's the feeling that I've been chasing ever since." Before we move on, can we just take a minute for this YENSA Beauty Super Serum Silk Foundation? Y'all, it's the first time I've tried it, and I am genuinely in love. Look how pretty that looks. Ooh, I'm so happy with it. Okay, so the babies have started working. They are now kind of bona fide child actors, or at least dipping a toe into that whole profession, right? So to supplement their income, the children, they sang their own original songs. River was actually a great, very talented songwriter, and he wrote a song entitled "Gonna Make It," and they would perform for money in matching yellow shirts and shorts. Actually did pretty well. Of course, they're a family of 7. It's a very big family. The only one working right now is, of course, their mother, Arlen, and it's a tough job. California is a very expensive place to live, and child actors, I'm sure, especially for like bit parts, don't make a ton of money. They actually did pretty well. What is that called? Kind of like panhandling. Either way, they supplemented their income that way. Now, on top of that, they're going to school. They're doing all of the things that growing children are supposed to do. Now, also, River and Joaquin are very, very invested in becoming actors. They're very invested in becoming successful in their chosen career. Now, in order to do this, they knew that they needed to be as talented as they possibly could be. So in order to become triple threats, they already could sing, they were already pretty good actors, but they also needed to learn how to dance. So in their free time, they attended dance classes, and actually, very surprisingly, Joaquin kind of picked it up like a bad habit, really, and became an intensely good break dancer of all things. In high school is where Joaquin really decides to put his foot down for the very first time, and it's kind of the beginning of his animal activism, right? So we all remember biology class in high school. I remember my biology class. I dissected a worm, I did a frog, I think we even did a baby pig at one point. Now, I'm not sure if they do that in school anymore or not, but Joaquin, he was in high school, but he was in kind of like remote classes because, again, he's working, he's acting, he's doing all this stuff. So he's not going like into school every single day. So he's basically homeschooled, and he's getting his lessons and stuff kind of mailed to him. So one day he receives a package, and inside is a frog ready to be dissected for his biology exam, and he absolutely loses his ever-loving mind. At that point, he decides he's done with high school, he's not going to have anything else to do with it, and he quits right then and there. Now, life in Los Angeles was incredibly difficult. Like I said, it is a super expensive city to live in, and at this point, Arlen, she's tired, she can't do it anymore, she can't afford it anymore, and they decide life in Los Angeles isn't everything we wanted it to be, so why stay? So they decide to pick up and move yet again. They packed up and they shipped out, and this time they went right back to Florida, but they decided to settle in the Gainesville area. After moving back to Florida, actually, life is going really, really well. Joaquin and River are both having some pretty major successes in their careers, and at this point they're really starting to establish themselves as bona fide child actors. River is doing absolutely phenomenally. River is really starting to become a little bit of a leading man. I believe this is when he gets the role in Indiana Jones, things like that. Maybe it's a little bit later on. Either way, they're both starting to get some really juicy roles. They're starting to get bigger and bigger parts. And after a couple of pretty big successes on Joaquin's part, it seems like his career kind of stalls out a little bit. This is when Joaquin is really like, he's kind of he's learning his own artistic taste, his artistic preferences. He's kind of figuring himself out as an actor. And at this point, he's just very unhappy with the caliber of roles that he's being offered. So at this point, he decides to kind of take a little bit of a break, take a step back. He leaves the acting to River, and he actually ends up deciding to go traveling. He decides that he wants to go visit Mexico. He goes with his dad, they go traveling, and he picks up Spanish along the way, actually has a really fantastic time, while his mother stays back, watches the other children, and then also looks after River. Now, like I said, River's career was really blowing up in a very, very big way. He was becoming somebody to be noticed. His name was recognized now, and he definitely had a little bit of celebrity behind his name. Now, upon returning to the States, Joaquin instantly is like, River, I miss you, because him and River had, they were very, very close. They were very similar people. And again, at this time, Joaquin is not Joaquin. He is Leaf. He is Leaf Phoenix. This is the name that he has chosen for himself, and this is the name that he has been going by for quite a few years at this point. Now, upon returning to the States, he enjoyed his trip with his father in Mexico. He's learned Spanish. Life is great. So they get back to the States, and River is like, dude, bro, I love you so much. I really think that you need to change your name back to Joaquin, and I really think that you need to get back in to the acting game. You're so good, you're so talented, and I really just think that you're just wasting all of your potential. Just go for it. Joaquin listens to his brother and decides, you know what, you're right. I love acting. I love the rush that it gives me. I'm good at it. I'm not going to walk away just because I got frustrated. So he does. He returns back to his legal name of Joaquin Phoenix, and he jumps back into the acting scene. Unfortunately, his comeback is going to take quite a bit of a back seat because their family is about to experience a loss that is just genuinely devastating. On October 31st, 1993, Joaquin's older brother, River Phoenix, passed away due to a drug overdose, an accidental drug overdose, outside of a Los Angeles club named the Viper Room. Joaquin had been there with his older brother, River, and then also his older sister, RAINE, and it was actually Joaquin who went outside looking for his brother and found him passed out, unresponsive. Now, immediately after finding his brother, he of course does the right thing, and he phones 911 and absolutely panicked is telling them what's going on, and it becomes one of the worst nights in Joaquin's life. Upon finding his brother unresponsive, Joaquin immediately got on the phone and dialed 911. Now, unfortunately, there was no way to save River. He was already gone, and he was pronounced DOA on arrival at the hospital. News of River's passing spread like absolute wildfire, and it seemed like it was everywhere. It was every TV show and radio station was just all anybody was talking about. And then on top of that, somehow they got a hold of the recording of the actual 911 phone call. So all you heard was Joaquin's panicked 911 conversation, like talking about his brother passing away. It was genuinely devastating for the entire family. And all of this media attention on top of the loss that they were already experiencing was just too much, and the family just decided to get the heck out of Dodge. They ended up fleeing to Costa Rica, and they stayed there until they felt like they were ready to handle, you know, just being a part of the world again. It took about 2 years for Joaquin to really process the loss and then return to Hollywood. But I do think it was very important to both Joaquin and the rest of his family to really take that 2 years and process the loss. River was such a giant part of their family, and of course him and Joaquin were so incredibly close, and for any parent to lose a child is just absolutely devastating in and of itself. Like, I can't imagine what that family went through. And then not only that, but to have the passing of their son be turned into some kind of like cautionary tale of young Hollywood. Like, they took his passing and made it wasn't about him anymore. It was kind of like, oh, look at this, you know. It just was awful. The way the media treated River's passing was just, it was horrendous and not okay in any way, shape, or form. So they hid for 2 years, and after the end of that 2 years, Joaquin was finally able to kind of like come out of his shell a little bit, return to Hollywood, and return to acting, because of course he loves acting and it did bring him some joy. Also, he felt like he needed to honor his brother's kind of like almost last request, because of course it was River who had encouraged Joaquin to get back into acting and to change his name back to Joaquin from Leaf. 5 years after returning to Hollywood in 2000, Joaquin landed the part of the Roman Emperor Commodus in Gladiator, starring Russell Crowe. I know we all remember that movie. He was like a baby. This was a baby Joaquin. But this was also his first kind of slightly unhinged character or role, and he did it so well. Like, he was 10 out of 10 in that role. You genuinely wanted to hate that man, and this was kind of like the beginning of something very, very great for his career. This was the role that really launched his film career, and he went on to star in at least 51 different films. I remember he was in Signs, like that was another one where he was just kind of like starting to become a leading man. Anyways, he is now mostly known for his expertise in playing dark, eccentric, and unconventional characters in independent films, and in particular period dramas. Now, overall, his career has been incredibly successful. He has won an Academy Award, he's won a Grammy Award, he's won 2 Golden Globes. In 2020, the New York Times named him one of the greatest actors of the 21st century. From his very humble beginnings, he has amassed a net worth of upwards of $80 million. He's also pretty well known for his disdain of celebrity culture, and very rarely does he do interviews. Like I said in the beginning, he just doesn't talk about himself. He does not talk about his personal life. He does not open up to the media or anyone in particular. I feel like a lot of that stems from the trauma he kind of endured during the media attention, and just the way the media handled the passing of his brother gave him some serious PTSD. So he really just doesn't enjoy the paparazzi or the media or the tabloids. He just doesn't want anything to do with them. Now, on top of that, Joaquin has had his own battles with addictions as well. So in early April of 2005, he checked himself into a rehab facility to be treated for alcoholism. Now, there had been no intervention. There was no reason for him to go in, other than he said that he just realized that he wasn't engaging with the world or himself in the way that he wanted to. He realized that he was being excessive, and he was proactive. Before a problem even really began, he decided to do something about it. Almost a year later, in January of 2006, Joaquin veered off the road and flipped his car while driving down a winding canyon road in California. Now, you might think that this was alcohol related because he had just gotten out of rehab, but actually that was not the case at all. The accident was actually due to a brake failure, and Joaquin almost died. Luckily for Joaquin, German filmmaker Werner Herzog was right behind him when the accident occurred, and he immediately got on his phone, contacted 911, got first responders out to the scene. After making the phone call, he immediately jumped out of his car to try and go help Joaquin, see if there was anything that he could do. Now, very, very lucky that he did that, because after the accident, you know, Joaquin was very understandably, he was confused, probably very concussed. He was very shaken, and he can't see anything because, of course, the car is absolutely totaled. It's destroyed, and he's just kind of like sitting in his car, just dazed and confused, and he starts, you know, trying to light up a cigarette. Now, of course, Werner, who is very capable of taking in the scene and smells gasoline, is like, dude, that's probably not a very good idea. Let's try to get you out of the car before you do anything like that. Now, luckily, Werner did that, because there was actually gasoline leaking into the cabin of the vehicle, and if he would have lit that cigarette, it probably would have been done for. So Werner ends up helping Joaquin get out of the car by busting the back window out, gets Joaquin out, and then, you know, pretty soon after, first responders arrive, and Joaquin ends up being okay. When it comes to Joaquin's love life, y'all, this man has actually been a very busy little bee and has been in quite a few relationships. It seems like he enjoys being in a relationship, but he also enjoys being a little bit of a playboy and having a short affair or two. One of the more surprising relationships that he's been in was with Liv Tyler. I had no idea that they were together, but apparently they were actually really serious about each other. So Joaquin dated Liv Tyler for almost 3 years, from October of 1995 to November of 1998. They met while working on the set of Inventing the Abbotts and immediately hit it off. Their relationship progressed rather quickly, and before they knew it, they were living together. Now, unfortunately, their relationship did not stand the test of time. However, they did part ways very, very amicably, with Joaquin saying, "At a certain point, I think we just stopped evolving with each other. We stopped progressing, and we made a very mature decision to move on, even though there was still great love between us." Liv was very much Joaquin's first love, and even though their relationship did not stand the test of time, just because the love ended didn't mean that the friendship did as well. To this day, they are still very close, and their families are close as well. Now, after he and Liv broke up, Joaquin briefly dated German journalist Jessica Joffe for a couple of months, and then after that, he dated British actress Anna Friel, who, fun fact, was in and out of the tabloids because she had dated Christian Bale as well. Now, after that, Joaquin was linked to his Quills co-star Amelia Warner. While they were working together, there was a lot of rumors swirling because there was so much chemistry and tension on set. However, when filming ended, so did the relationship, and they both mutually decided to go their own separate ways. Fun fact though, I think Amelia actually went on to date and then marry 50 Shades of Grey, hunky, Mr. Jamie Dornan. Now buckle up, because this next little tidbit absolutely blew my ever-loving mind. Apparently, in 2006, Joaquin had a very short but very hot and intense kind of affair with Lindsay Lohan. I saw that in an article, and it just, could you actually imagine? Now, before that, in 2001, Joaquin embarked on a very short but very romantic relationship kind of affair with Norwegian model Lisa Ebeltoft after meeting at a fashion show in New York City. Now, they called it quits after just a few short months, but it was very amicable and very mutual. After being introduced by mutual friends in 2005, Joaquin began a 6-month-long relationship with model/environmentalist Topaz Pagegreen. They shared an affinity for veganism and animal rights activism, which of course became a pretty big part of their relationship. Now, work and long distance put an end to that affair, but they two remain friends. Also in 2005, Joaquin met and began seeing Jennifer Goodwin after they met on the set of Walk the Line. Now, their whirlwind romance was short but undeniably passionate. They showcased their undeniable chemistry at several public events, though their romance burned bright but very, very briefly though not as brief as some of his other flings. They were together for about 6 months, but then again mutually agreed to part ways and continued to be friends. And then there was Miss Rooney Mara. Now, she was born Patricia Rooney Mara on April 17th, 1985. She is 39 years old, which makes her around 10 years younger than Mr. Joaquin. Now, not only is she a good 10 years younger than Joaquin, but her backstory is quite literally the polar opposite of his as well. Like, it's insane. She was born into diamond spoon kind of money. Her mother's family founded the Pittsburgh Steelers, and her father's family founded the New York Giants. So she comes from basically sports royalty. Her father, Timothy Christopher Mara, is the senior vice president of player personnel for the New York Giants, while her mother is a part-time real estate agent, but just for funsies. Rooney is also a middle child, so they have that in common as well. On top of that, they both have a ton of siblings. So Rooney is the third of 4 siblings. She has an older brother, Daniel, and an older sister, Kate, who is also an actress. She was in that teenage superhero movie. If I can remember what it was, I'll pop it up here on the screen. And then she has one younger sibling, a brother named Connor. Rooney and Joaquin met in 2012 while they both worked together on the film Her. Do you guys remember that movie? I think Scarlett Johansson, she voiced like this computer system, and Joaquin began dating her and they fell in love, but she ended up leaving him in the end. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, it's actually a really good movie, but very like a little bit different, and I don't know. Either way, Rooney was playing his ex-wife in that movie, and they kind of connected during that film. However, their love story is not one that is all about like love at first sight. There basically was no love lost between them when they first met. Actually, Joaquin thought that Rooney just couldn't stand him. Like, he thought she hated his absolute guts and pretty much detested him. Throughout the entire time they worked together on that movie, like when they were filming their scenes together, she was short and distant with him, and he genuinely just thought that she despised him. However, he was enchanted by her. He was very much interested and intrigued by her, but, thought that she hated him, so there was no chance there. However, that was really not the case. She was very much into him, but just very, very shy and not sure how to go about kind of approaching him. Now, even though they missed the boat on that first opportunity to kind of get together, fate had other plans in store for them. Fast forward, I want to say around 4 years, to October of 2016, and they get the opportunity to work together once again. Rooney was much friendlier this go around, and pretty quickly Joaquin is kind of like picking up what she's putting down and realizes that she is indeed very, very into him, and he also understands that she's just incredibly shy, and her way of dealing with the crush that she has on him is just to pretty much ignore him just in general. She's just like pretty much is running away from him on set. He's kind of having to chase after her just a little bit, and nothing really starts happening on set, but he realizes that there is a crush there. There is a mutual attraction, and this kind of tension begins to build between them. And throughout the entire duration of filming this movie, they're kind of like playing this little bit of like a cat and mouse game, right? And up until this point, besides Liv, he's not been serious about anybody. He really hasn't pursued anyone. He's had his flings and, his one night stands, but for the most part, he's been a bachelor. He's been very single and hasn't been very interested in anybody. Not interested relationship wise anyway. So when he finds out that, Rooney is definitely into him, he realizes that if there is any chance of them having a relationship, it is definitely Joaquin that is going to have to make the first move. But Joaquin too, he's a little bit peculiar. He's not a super confident go-getter kind of guy. And even if he is, he realizes that that's not the way to approach this situation. It's not like he can just go up to her and ask her, hey, you want to go out? She's too shy for that. And he realizes that there's got to be a different approach here. So instead, he gets her email address, and they begin emailing back and forth, and this goes on for a good long while, and they begin like corresponding that way. It's almost like a pen pal, but electronic mail. Anyway, they're emailing with each other and they're flirting and they're like getting to know each other, and on top of working together, they're still emailing as well. So it's just like, I think it's so adorable. It's almost innocent in a way, because definitely nothing was happening on set. There were no like quick stolen kisses, and there was no like on set romance. There was, but it was very no touchy. It was very just like very subtle. So anyway, they're emailing, things kind of escalate a little bit, and you know, after a little while they end up meeting up, and of course the minute they meet up, fireworks go off, and very shortly thereafter they begin to date. Now they keep this to themselves. Like I said, Joaquin is a very, very private person, and Rooney is as well. So once they kind of hook up, they let the world speculate, but they don't say a word. Cut to May of 2017, and the film that they have just collaborated on, Mary Magdalene, is up for review. They're at the Cannes Film Festival in France, and they're both kind of walking the red carpet. Now, at this point, neither one of them have confirmed that they're together. However, throughout the entirety of the festival, they are very close to each other. They're seen canoodling and getting awful cozy with one another, yet still, they don't say a word. And then a couple of months later, by September of 2017, they eventually admit that, yeah, we're together, we're a couple. Now, 4 months after that, Joaquin had let it slip that he and Rooney had already moved in together. So by this point, they've been together, I want to assume, for maybe a year at this point, but it could be less, it could be more. We just don't know. But we do know that they're living together at this point. They are very much a couple, and they just do not care what anybody has to say. They're not saying a word about it. They are pretty much keeping to themselves and enjoying life in their own little bubble. Joaquin does say, however, that some of their very favorite things to do as a couple are meditate, and then they also really love binge watching true crime documentaries on Netflix. Now, the logical next step in any relationship, you know, you move in together, you get engaged, you get married, and then you start having babies. For them, though, that was definitely not the case. Both of them said they have absolutely zero intention of ever getting married. When they were asked about it, they both said that despite the fact that they are madly in love with each other, they have zero intention of ever tying the knot. Marriage is just too conventional and too mainstream to be something they would ever even consider. Despite the fact that they are from polar opposite backgrounds, they are genuinely the same person. They're on the same page when it comes to everything from their diet. They're both vegans. They both want nothing to do with, putting an animal on the plate. They are both super into meditation. They're both really heavily into animal activism as well. Like they're basically the same person, but different genders. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, because they were both in the same Hollywood sphere for such a long time, and then they met each other the first time, and it took 4 more years for them to get together. But once they got together, it was literal perfection, and I don't see them ever really breaking up, honestly. I feel like they genuinely are perfect for each other. Now, when it comes to the whole engagement thing, I always say never say never, because not too long after that, Rooney was spotted out running around doing errands in California, and she had a big old diamond ring on that finger. And then a couple of months later, Joaquin kind of confirmed that yes, indeed, he had gotten down on one knee and he had proposed. Now, just because he proposed doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get married, because this happened in 2017, and y'all, they still aren't married. I do believe that they had kind of like planned something, set up a wedding date a little while back, but for some reason, one reason or another, it ended up not happening, and I think that is because they ended up getting pregnant. In May of the next year, they ended up announcing that they were expecting their very first child together, and then by September of 2020, they were first-time parents. They had welcomed an incredibly precious, super beautiful baby boy. They ended up naming River in honor of Joaquin's older brother. 2 years later, in 2022, Rooney and Joaquin got the chance to work together yet again for the 3rd time when they were cast as the leads for the film the island. Now, apparently this film is about, it's inspired by true events about a couple who decided to live on a remote island, and we're gonna stay there until they made a splash in the press, something like that. I've never seen the movie. I've never even really heard of it. But again, Joaquin is very much known for starring in kind of like off the beaten path indie films, so it makes sense that I haven't heard of it. And Rooney is known for very much the same thing. I think the big film that Rooney has been in was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Now, I've seen that movie. I actually have all of the original. I think they're European movies. I don't know what country. I think it might be German, but I could be wrong about that. Either way, the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies, fantastic. And the remake that Rooney did was really great as well. However, a very, very difficult movie to watch. Definitely not for everybody. In the end, it's kind of fantastic because like she gets revenge. It's very much a revenge story, and this, like, Elizabeth Solanda is the role that she plays. It's intense. It's insane. It's just crazy movie. Anyway, fantastic movie, but also very independent, very off the beaten path. So even when it comes to their careers, they are very, very similar. Now, they got to work together again on the island, and then that was, I don't know if that was super successful or not. It got pretty good reviews. However, again, I've never seen it, so I really can't tell you anything about it. Now, in February of this year, they announced that they were expecting baby number 2. They announced it on the red carpet at the Berlin Film Festival. And Rooney kind of like, she just kind of showcased herself. She had this big old baby bump in this super gorgeous, very flowy, long black dress. Absolutely stunning. I'll pop up a picture. But after that, we really haven't heard much from them. I am assuming that the baby has been born by this point, but again, we don't know anything. There haven't been any updates. And in my opinion, the baby's here. They're just enjoying life, you know, with the new addition, and you know, they'll tell us about it when they're ready. Well, my lovelies, unfortunately, that is all the information I have for you today. There haven't been any updates, and again, they're super private, so I doubt there will be any for a good while to come. Y'all, I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I did. I still think Mr. Joaquin Phoenix is very much a mystery. I think he's a little bit of an odd duck, but a nice odd duck, I guess. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is today's finished makeup. What do we think? Do we like it? Do we love it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, no filters, no fancy lighting. It is just me sitting in front of my camera telling you guys an epic love story. Hoping you guys are enjoying what I'm doing. If you did enjoy today's video, please don't forget to give it a big old thumbs up before you leave. Guys, I am off to work. I love you so very much. And until next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.